This is Aidan Jonah, Editor-in-Chief of the Canada Post here, bringing you some big news that's been breaking today. And it's not for the better. Canada's relations with China really are, continuing to crater, and it's going to hurt us. So let's get into this. So there's a Chinese diplomat who's based in the Toronto consulate for China. Now, his name is Zhao Wei. He's a diplomat, and he has been declared persona non grata. And this all comes around this allegation that started with the Globe and Mail reporting, where this Globe took a national security source's word about a 2021 CSIS report, which claimed that a Conservative MP, Michael Chong, was targeted in retaliation for him sponsoring a vote in 2021 pushing the Uyghur genocide narrative. Now, the Canada Files has done reporting on that. It was driven, that vote and the report that led to it in the Kane subcommittee was driven by a CIA-funded group, the Uyghur Rights Advocacy Project. So just for that context alone, now let's get back into it. So you have this case, right? And the interesting thing about it is that Michael Chong says that he was not aware of it. So one would have to ask, if an MP is being targeted and his family, being targeted by a foreign government, how in the world they wouldn't be aware of that, right? It has to raise initial questions. Then we have a bit of a development, of course. By the time we get to the 4th of May, you then have Conservative MP Michael Chong telling reporters that he had a call with Jodie Thomas, who is the Prime Minister Trudeau's National Security Advisor. She said at the time that CSIS gave that 2021 assessment of the supposed threats against MP Michael Chong to these departments, which included the Privy Council office. But there was some contradiction on that front, actually. Let's take a look at this clip. So what you get from this clip now, you'll see, is that Michael Chong admitted that there's some confusion. Jodie Thomas had told him that Trudeau, nor his chief of staff, Katie Telford, they had not received these alleged reports and warnings. So now let's get into actually the nature of these reports, because that's a big question of this. And someone who's has some good points on this has been Stephen Best, and he raised a fair question, which is, why hasn't any politician or any journalist asked Michael Chong or CSIS what the Chinese government or anyone associated with it did to Chong or his family in Hong Kong? And he goes on to say that there hasn't been any serious reporting on trying to get to the bottom of what supposedly was done by the Chinese government. And the family in Hong Kong of my MP Chong wasn't actually interviewed. So you'd think in terms of journalism, right, that you would have a serious deep dive into this, but instead, in fact, you don't. And then you have the Minister Mendocino also challenging CSIS in really ramming it home that this was, on the CSIS for not bringing the report to Trudeau. Yet again, this isn't to say that the report actually is true. It's simply to emphasize how this behavior of CSIS and the leaking of this information from intelligence sources that are clearly not strong. So I want to build on that because the Globe and Mail has been the one pushing this. So we're going to take a look at an article of mine, in fact. First of all, I want to bring you some context, of course, that the people involved, the two people involved, Robert Fife and Stephen Chase in this story, you actually had them, Fife out of the two, volunteering to uncritically reproduce reportings by CSIS about supposed foreign influence operations, right? And this was in January of 2022. Just to give you an idea already that there's a habit of Fife really just taking whatever the heck CSIS says as the magical truth. And then you have this issue where CSIS is trying to actually hide communications with Fife and Chase, the people who are pushing this big story and are taking the CSIS report as, like I said, the bloody truth. So you have these couple factors, right? You have Michael Chong not being able to even say what happened to the family supposedly. You have reporters who initially already were, gullible patsies for CSIS, going ahead, just taking this report on a whim. And then you have CSIS not wanting to disclose communications between, Fife, Chase, and them, which, leads to a clear element here. In my view, it's a pretty simple end game. You have a diplomat, Zhao Wei, being forced out of the country, his name, dragged through the mud, and that guy's life is in absolute turmoil. I mean, frankly, given the vitriolic atmosphere towards him, it's probably best for his safety to be out of the country first and foremost. But this is just a wild, goose chase. So it's a mad hunt, paranoid hunt for interference, ideas of interference, as we have, of course, the NED and other U.S. groups just openly interfering, right? And this is something I want to bring up too, is with this whole paranoia, right, about the question of foreign interference and all that. There's a foreign influence transparency registry push, right? But you'll note in this article that Daniel G did is that they're only really considering the question of foreign interference supposedly from Russia and China, right? Because I want to bring this too in terms of context. You have this critical problem where anytime there's alleged interference, by Russia or China, there's a whole media push. Globe and Mail, Robert Fife, Stephen Chase, everyone else, so, cheers that on, right? And there's just this mass hysteria about it. Parliament, just the liberals, Trudeau, they're anti-China, so they're just going to try to cover themselves instead of challenging this, of course. So nobody should expect, Trudeau to be the hero of this, to challenge, CSIS at all in like a way of, their anti-China nature. But there is, a factional fight between, the conservatives and the liberals, and this, bigger CSIS push to, cause major problems with the Trudeau government is, first of foremost, it's to boost the conservatives because, they don't win they haven't won elections since Harper, in 2015. And you also have a very useful element of it covers people's eyes from, economic struggles, and also from the fact that you have supposed allies, U.S. government, the Taiwanese secessionist government, the Latvian Defense Ministry. You have all these people, interfering in Canadian politics, and these are very, tangible things. The Campbells has gone into very deeply. I've reported on very deeply. These are tangible things, but instead you have just this mass paranoia about Russian and Chinese interference. It's as a reporter who's broken a lot of this stuff in terms of the NED interference, etc. It's very frustrating because there's more tangible proof, more proof available to the public eye in the Campbell's reports on this than there is in terms of Globe and Mail. It's trust us, trust us, trust us. CSIS, that has done many misdeeds, that was born out of an RCMP that constantly flouted the law. CSIS exists because their predecessor broke so many laws and regulations. We're just supposed to take their word for it, right? It's a major problem, and there needs to be a pushback towards this because Chinese Canadians it's a really bad time for them. They're getting hammered from all places, and there has to be a critical analysis to this because realistically we could have more positive relations with China and benefit economically, but instead we just have this mass paranoia, and it really hurts Canadians, and Chinese Canadians really are really getting hit hard. So that's it. I've been Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files, giving you this report. I do appreciate you folks getting all the way to the end and hearing me out, because this is just really an enraging set of times. this narrative, this paranoia, has to be challenged, and it's critical if Canada wants to, if Canadians want to actually see a better future, that this rampant, government by CSIS has to be challenged in a forceful way. And well, some of the key journalism that's trying to fight against that is being done by the Canada Files. We've been doing analysis, investigations, reports. We've been doing these kind of YouTube analysis videos more recently. And that journalism costs money. So if you folks value our work, please consider setting up a monthly donation or an annual donation. Link will be in the bio. And if you folks want shorter videos in the future, do let me know. But in this case, I felt there's more analysis needed. So comments below, let me know your thoughts. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day. And yeah, be critical of this media coverage, and be critical of our political elite, and be critical of CSIS. CSIS should not be running our government, and people should be speaking up about this paranoia. It's going to hurt us deeply if there's not pushback to it.